I'd be nursing a baby and like Fulcrum Physiotherapy, you know, and it was stupid in hindsight.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Clinic Boss podcast. I'm Manju, solopreneur lead here at CA, Clinic Accelerator. And I work with clinicians who are looking to start their practices, grow their practices. But let's be honest, I know Lindsey, you're probably going to agree with us, is it's not an easy thing to jump into ownership, right?
Absolutely.
And it for sure takes a village, if not more. Right. So today
Yes.
we're actually going to be talking. Yeah, it's like, I get it. Like we both understand that. Right. And so today we're going to actually be talking about something that we've never talked about at Clinic Boss, which I think it's so crazy because I feel like it's one of the things we should be shouting out loud. It's kind of like a well-kept secret, like an elephant in the room. And a lot of us are really kicking ass at this right now. Dare I say, mommyhood, entrepreneurship, and, that word, work-life balance. So yeah. I personally just want to share, like I have 2 young girls. You know this, Lindsey.
Mm-hmm.
I had my practice for 8 years, grew it, had my first baby, which I called my clinic, had my second actual baby, right? My daughter who's 7, and then another little one as well. So 2 girls who are 4. Who's 4, sorry. And throughout that, like all those mat leaves, all the, 3-month mat leave, go back to work, pump, freeze. Oh, hire somebody else. Oh, someone gave me notice. How do I market? Am I actually doing well? All that stuff came out pretty strong during that time. And so while I was doing that, scaling my business, I was trying to figure out how to do this balance thing without burning out. And today I want to introduce you to someone I feel that's been really kicking ass, and that's you, Lindsey. So my good friend here, Lindsey, who is a solopreneur. She's a CEO at work. She's a CEO at home. And I think you're just like a boss babe in general, Lindsey. So this is Lindsey Walker from Fulcrum Physiotherapy. Welcome.
Thank you. That was a very kind intro.
It is. It's all you, honestly. So before we get started, I know there was like a lot of nodding and all that because I feel like we've almost paralleled this journey in so many ways, right? You also have
Definitely.
2 little ones, right? Then how old are they?
So my oldest, my son, he's 4, and my daughter just turned 1 last week, which coincidentally her birthday is like the birthday of our clinic as well. So
Nice.
It's a lot to celebrate on one day. So
wow. So you opened your clinic and had a little one.
Yeah. So our clinic turned 3 and my daughter turned 1. So they're not the same year, but it's the same day. So
I was going to be like, we need to add this like amazing superwoman title on top of this. Right?
No. That's asking a lot. So no. But yeah, it's February is a busy month in our household for sure. So absolutely.
So for those of you, because I know you really well, and I've kind of gone through this journey with you, been working together for almost a year now. Let's talk a little bit about, your journey and how you arrived here.
Oh man, yeah. Well, I feel like a lot has happened.
You want to share.
I was like, how far back do you want me to go? Because I always say like I was never set out to be an entrepreneur. I never wanted to own a business. I actually distinctly remember in a job interviewing, they asked me like, what do you want to do with your career? And I was like, I never want to own a business, is what I had said.
Oh.
And so it is kind of weird how I ended up here because I never set out to be an owner and definitely not an entrepreneur. It really doesn't actually fit with my personality. I'm like a low risk, safety, structure type of personality. So to say that there's been some growing pains along the way is like sort of doesn't quite capture the experience from my perspective. But yeah, I mean, it kind of, I think for a lot of people, like COVID just sort of really changed my perspective on things. It changed how I wanted to practice. I kind of came out of there almost ready to like leave the profession altogether, which I think if you talk to any clinician during COVID, we were just kind of done with it. On top of that, I'd had my first kiddo during a pandemic, which shout out to all the first time moms during a pandemic. We are just built differently because what a bizarre experience. And then add a pandemic, like life was a dumpster fire. It just, it was so complex. And so I always say that kind of like prepared me to be a business owner, because I was like, well, it can't be harder than that, like no one's dying, so we're good. And so, yeah, so I actually was ready to leave the profession. I did end up I left private practice altogether. I went and worked in the hospitals for a while, which again, I think, interesting experience. It sort of solidified for me, like what my values are and what I want out of like my work. Again, I had a great experience working in the public sector. This is not me trying to kibosh it. I just realized that like, I really like efficiencies, and I like, sort of a little bit more autonomy and that sort of stuff. So that sort of helped me solidify what I wanted to do. An opportunity came up. It was always one of those opportunities that I had said to my husband, like, oh, like that would just be the dream scenario. That would be my dream job. I would do that if that came up. And then really randomly caught wind that there was this opportunity open up, and it was like, okay, like, am I crazy for doing this? And so again, we had kind of thought like, well, we've been through worse. Let's just try it. And hopefully we don't live out of our car at the end of it, So, and like 3 years later, we're doing okay. So here we are.
Amazing. And we're going to deep dive further, because I know a lot of people want to hear like every step of the way, right? Like, how do you make those decisions? How do you know, like, these are my values now? Because sometimes when you're in school, you don't realize that. Like, you don't realize how much of a role that plays, right? As you build your career.
Yeah.
And so as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, and even yesterday I was thinking like, okay, in schools now, it's not like it is before, like where it's male dominant in physio schools and chiro schools. So 70 to 80% of students are actually women now going into PT school. And the funny thing is, only 30% of them actually go to run their own practices after. And it's such a big disparity, because I'll say as well, like, I always wanted to be a clinic owner, but boy, did I not. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, right? Like, I had no idea what I was jumping into. But in your experience, you never wanted that. And you started off in the hospital. Is that right?
So I had worked private practice for most of my career. And then out of COVID, like, so October 2020, I went on mat leave. And at that point, I basically like pieced out of my job, and I was like, not coming back, don't know what I'm doing. It was kind of, I just like, for me, that the year away was just kind of like, I got to figure out what I'm doing, because I don't want to keep doing what I'm doing. And then after,
like, what was about, like, you were in private
practice, and like, I was in private practice. Yeah.
You knew, like, that point, you're like, this is not for me. I don't care what I'm doing, but I'm not doing this. So what about that?
I think if I like really boil it down to what it, like, sort of cutting through all the fluff, I think what it really was, it was a misalignment of values, right?
Okay.
I'm such a stereotypical millennial. I'm all about like my values and my work and my expression of myself and work, right? And so, but I think like just really recognizing that, of like that discontent and that tension that I felt in my job, that I felt like it was just draining me of everything, was just really, at the end of the day, it was a misalignment of values. And just recognizing that, like, okay, this isn't working for me. So like, walk away and be okay with the uncertainty. And then, had a baby. and I think also for me, like, motherhood really gave me clarity on what do I value, right? Like, if you talk to any parent at the end of the day, they're like, family first, like my kids come first. And so I think for me, like, sort of the alignment of all of that just really helped sort of like strip away all of like the things that I would get worried about or stressed about, and realizing like, this is what I value and this is what I want my life to look like. And so again, I took a job in public care just because like I needed a job.
Yeah.
And coming out of the pandemic, things were, having a bit of stability and having that salary and having that sort of like structure was really, again, comforting to a personality like myself. And then again, coming out of that, you just start to realize like, okay, well, this isn't really fitting my values either. So what do I need in order to be able to like practice the way that I want to practice? And if I'm honest, like, I really enjoy private practice. I do. I really love like the connections that I make with my clients. And especially like, and this is sort of more dependent on my geography and the fact that I've been in my area for as long as I have been. Like, a lot of these people, I've walked through their life with them, right? Like it's kind of that family physician mindset of like, community. I am their family physio. Yeah. That community. And so like, I I love it. I grew up in a small town, so even though I'm in a big urban center, I love when I run into my clients at the grocery store. I've just learned to accept that they're going to see me like in my sweatpants with my pineapple bun on the top of my head, and that's fine, you know. And
Yeah.
my kids are freaking out, but it's like, you know, you just, and so I just learned that like for me having that community and that connection, and that's more important to me than like all of the other stuff. So
And that's so interesting that you say that because, we talk about the village, we talk about community, and more we lean on our community, which is often not family anymore because everybody's sort of spaced out now, it seems, in terms of distance. And so that's that same community that you wanted to encounter, not only necessarily for your kids to grow up in, but even that's what you value for your own career, which I find so interesting, right? Like a lot of times there's that disparity, like, oh, I want this for my job, but I don't want this for my life necessarily.
Yeah.
So when you left your private practice, like like the first time when you had you were pregnant, what were you making? Like, what was it compensation? Like, was it split? Was it salary? What were you sort of, like, what was your take home week to week? Do you remember?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, so we had like the company had redone their pay structure during COVID. So that was also kind of part of it. It sort of felt like a bit of a shock to the system. I mean, and again, I have complete sympathy for all parties. Like COVID was awful, especially for people industries, right?
Yeah.
And so I think what I do remember is that by the time from what I was making to that point to then when I was going on mat leave, I had taken like what was a 40% pay reduction. So
Okay.
it kind of was like, for me, that was like the nail in the coffin of like, well, this isn't even worth it anymore. And
Okay.
so I don't remember the specifics, but it was very like typical. Like it was very, I remember I kind of felt like I made like middle of the road. I was paid, before COVID, I was paid hourly. And again, I liked that as I prefer safety. And also as a young clinician, like you don't really have the confidence to be like, oh, fee split, like I got this, I'm just going to blow through the water. Right. So sort of having those guardrails was really nice. And then there was that change as well. So it was just sort of one more thing that made me be like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. I don't fit here, and that's okay. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Just even recognizing that. So the financial structure obviously changed, 40% pay cut, right? During COVID, you were about to go on mat leave, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm ready for that next change. I want to reprioritize. I want to like lean on my values and things that I actually care about and that are important to me now. And then you're diving into like the unknown. And you stumble upon a hospital position, right?
Yeah. So
What was that like? Like that was sort of what, exploring what you didn't know, or what came to mind there? Because was it financial or sort of kind of lead us through that.
Yeah, it was kind of a mixed things. Again, like COVID was happening, the baby, also like things in my personal life were really uncertain. And so for me, I just want safety and stability. I also I don't like to drive very far. And so we lived like 10 minutes from the hospital.
Okay.
And so it was like, okay, I'm like, it kind of it checked enough boxes. It was like, okay, safety, security, guaranteed income, close to my home. I liked the schedule, and I was kind of also ready. I'm like, let's just try something else. Right. Like I had done private practice for so long. And so I was like, I don't know. And so it was really nice because it was an outpatient. So it wasn't like too far outside my comfort zone. I knew someone that worked in the department, and they had said like, it's such a supportive team. And it was really nice too. Cause I think like, I don't know if this is like everywhere, but what I often find here is that like younger clinicians work in private practice because we're energetic and we're like, yeah, I got this, and then as you get older in your career. So it was really nice to go into that setting because suddenly I was the young one. Like I was the baby physio. And so I got to work with, I called them like my work moms because they were literally my mom's age, and they knew everything. They had done it for a million years. And I just felt like they kind of like embraced me. And as I was coming back into work, totally like, like mom brain, couldn't remember anything. They just sort of helped me like get going again. And so honestly, it was like a super supportive environment, and I really liked it. And to this day, like I have such a heart, like spot in my heart for that place, because it was like the best way to get going again after my first maternity leave, and also coming out of the pandemic and the uncertainty and all that sort of stuff. So
did you end up taking like a 12-month mat leave then? Because as obviously an independent contractor, we don't have that flex. Like you don't have that sort of bonus, right?
Yeah. And so, my first mat leave, I took 12 months off for an added layer. And again, anyone who had a baby during the pandemic will appreciate how stressful that was, because at the time, because, we were making it up as we were going, there was no guaranteed mat leave. So I got laid off from my job, and I hadn't disclosed that I was pregnant yet. And so we're collecting these COVID EI benefits. And then I was talking to the EI people or CRA or whoever it was, and they're like, oh, well, you won't qualify for mat leave.
Wow.
And so there was just this added stress of like, okay, so
Even
do I
though
get one?
you had a salaried position.
Yes. And yeah.
Okay.
Now, like full disclosure, they ended up changing that rules as time went on. But in the moment, it was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I just felt so like vulnerable. And I think, again, if you talk to any COVID mom, they'll tell you similar stories. Like, I'm not the only one. And so I think, again, like having those experiences and the uncertainty, I was like, I just want a job where I'm going to show up, do my job, and they're going to pay me. And that's all I want right now.
You wanted something that was sort of like what you thought then would line up with your values, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Go in, you could leave at a certain time, you were getting paid, X amount, and you were getting that, paycheck to paycheck. You didn't have to question anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you took how long again? You said for mat leave?
I took my first one. I took a year. Yeah, I was off for 12 months. Yeah.
Okay. And then with that, you still didn't actually reap any of the benefits initially for like a mat leave. So you were kind of in that uncertain position, right? Where a lot of people, I find, go into these professions like chiro, physio, and they're like, you don't think about that stuff. You don't think about future planning. Like maybe I do want to have a kid and will my mat leave be 3 months? Like personally, mine was 3. And again, I said like I was pumping at work, trying to manage schedules. And then I feel like I say this out loud often. I'm like, I felt sorry for the first patient I saw when I came back. What kind of state of mind I was in. It's interesting that you say that because you had all those factors and your fear was, or you're not even your fear. You're just kind of like, I don't want entrepreneurship. So what flipped?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I think like, again, like underneath all of that was sort of a response to everything that was going on around me. Right. Yes. And I think like, if I think back to like, cause before I was a physio, I was a strength and conditioning coach. So, I mean, I've always been invested in like exercise and movement, and I like strength. I always say I've done a better job helping people with low back pain as a strength coach than I have as a physio. And so I think like that sort of like DNA never went away. Right. And so I think, as the world got going again, as life stabilized, as we got through that first year of motherhood of just like, what am I doing? I think you just start to like reevaluate. And again, it was like, okay, like this served a purpose for this time. And it was such a gift at the time. And then you get kind of through that and you start to say like, well, what do I value again? Right. And so for me, it was like autonomy and and treating the patient population that I do really enjoy. Right. And again, that's no knock on people that work in the public sector.
I'm just like different reasons and different uses for that purpose. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And so just realizing that like, I'm way more comfortable in a gym setting than I am anywhere else. And so again, when that opportunity came up, it was like 7 minutes from my house. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is what I've said I've always wanted and I've always dreamed of, but I don't want it right now. Like, can we just wait a couple years till I feel a bit more like I'm getting going again? So, so the timing didn't feel good at all, but the opportunity was like, I've always wanted to try this. And so again, I have a really great support system. So they're like, just do it, just jump in, So, and so I did. Yeah. And again, I think at the time it was like, having that structure and that support in place allowed me to again really value, like, okay, what are my core values? Like, what do I really want out of my career? So,
okay. So a lot of people like, that idea of like structure, support, like, you have kids and you're kind of like, I always joke around, like anybody who has a routine, like goodbye for a while, maybe see you later. I don't know. Like, I don't think I've come to that quite yet. You have those like sleepless nights, but somehow you're functioning on 3 coffees the next day. Whatever, you kind of figure it out as we both drink our coffees. But
coffee number 3, speaking of.
And so talk to me about that structure and support, because I think that is so key. And it's often a fear, right? Like people are like all these like this anxiousness in your head. And sometimes as owners hiring millennials, we're not really identifying with their fears, or we're like, whatever, you have a job, like we're offering you this. I'm like, what's the big deal, right? So talk to me about your support system that allowed you to make that decision.
Yeah.
And
and I mean, so full, like I recognize and I I always say, I'm like, I don't know how other people do this. I have like an amazing support system. So my parents live very close to us. They're very involved. Like they have been cheering me on. They help with childcare. I always joke, I'm like, my kids like their grandparents more than they like me. Like on the days we don't see them, my son's like, when is grandma coming over? You know, I'm like, sorry, I'm home, you know?
Yeah.
So I have really good like supports in that way. My husband is phenomenal. He's a jack of all trades. Like he, and again, like he is invested into the business as much as I am. And so, you know, he helps behind the scenes. We trade off. He works shift work, which also, again, which part of what makes this work is that I wanted a job where we can trade off, because we don't like Saturday is not Saturday in our household, right? It rotates every 8 days. So
Yeah.
we kind of just embrace this like chaotic like schedule that we live, and we make it work for us. So yeah, I have a lot of, for me, it comes in the form of family. And then I would also say my caseload, that even though I was gone from private practice for over a year, I think was it even 2 years, maybe, you know, they were so kind, and like they would Google me and they would find me and they'd ask where I was. And so I feel like even my clientele is sort of part of that support system. Cause like when I have to call and say like, hey, my kids are sick, like I can't come in, they're like, oh, that's okay. Like they're parents too. They get it, you know? So I am really fortunate. Like I have a really strong support system to make this all go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I didn't know, like, I mean, we know each other pretty well, but I didn't know that. And I know your husband went back to school. So that was a huge thing as well, right?
Yep. He's almost done. One more week.
That's huge, right? And like
Yeah.
embracing the chaos that comes with the initial portion of entrepreneurship, but obviously embracing life and child, you know, having children all, you know, adds to the pile there. But what's interesting is what you said is like, even for 2 years, you were in the hospital doing your thing, taking on that new challenge, enjoying it. But you were slowly leaning towards what you knew was like your true passion. You just had to kind of sort through the rest of it to figure it out.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And talk to me about like, what did you do during those 2 years that your patients could still find you, even though like you were still branding yourself, it seems. Is that right?
I wasn't. I had started like an Instagram page, and like, I mean, don't go scroll back to the bottom. It's very embarrassing content. It's terrible. And so I had done that because I was like, well, I should. That's what everyone's doing, but I wasn't really committed to it. And then honestly, like, I don't really know. And I think I think where I am in terms of location has helped a lot. Like when I started practicing in my area, I think there was like 4 physios down here. So I live in like the fastest growing area / quadrant of my city. So it's, you know, like just longevity, I think helps. And then, I think just like, if you make meaningful connections with people, like they will remember you. They will look for you. Right. And my clients knew I was going on mat leave. That wasn't a surprise to them. And they said like, well, you tell me when you're back, you know? And so, and it, you know, but I had left the practice. So a lot of it was just like, you know, fingers crossed, come find me. And so you know, I mean, obviously like when I did decide to launch, like we got a website up, you know, I made sure my name was all over the website. So if they Googled me, they could, you know, even intentional things like I didn't, I had never changed my practice name to like my married name. And so they were like, I didn't switch that so that like they could still find me, sort of things. So part of it was that. But I just always, we have a silly saying in our family that like, no one cares how much you know unless they know that you care. And so I think like that's always kind of been the way that I've approached my practice. And so I feel like, especially coming out of the pandemic, like people just were looking for good care. They were looking for meaningful connection. They were looking to be seen as a person, not just a case. And so I think like the things that I had planted in my caseload like years ago, it was starting to see like the fruit of that like down the road when I went out on my own. And so I was really fortunate. I had a lot of people, they're like, I just Googled you and you came up, you know, and I was like, wow, okay, that's phenomenal. So yeah.
It's that community networking, the connection that you do, even without necessarily forcing it in a way, right? Like, and a lot of people, you'll probably agree, like they'll resort to digital online presence and, you know, only focus on Google reviews and only focus on certain forms of marketing. But like what you're saying, this stuff doesn't cost anything. It's just more having a conversation and maybe mentioning like, how's your son doing? Or how's your daughter doing? Or like, how's your mom? And so all of that, you know, whether it comes naturally in your case or for some people they work on, it doesn't go away. It's a feeling that you're giving someone, right? which we know
Totally.
is the most important thing when they come to see you. It's not about their pain,
Yeah,
it's about the feeling, right? So
absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. Like I didn't know that about it, like that
Yeah.
gap there. So when
Yeah.
you decide, okay, this is not for me, I'm stepping
Hmm.
away,
Hmm.
what's that timeline like? Like what is, okay, now I'm opening in the gym, this opportunity has come up.
Hmm. Hmm.
What's the thought process there to make this decision?
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because like now 3 years later, it's such a blur, right? But I'm trying to think to like back to like when you're in it, I think like part of it was just not thinking too much about it. I am an overthinker and I can completely like convince, like walk myself out of my own decision and be
Oh,
like, this is the worst idea. I'm not doing it, you know?
yeah.
And so it was just, I had people in my corner that were like cheering me on, that were like, you can do this. Your clients love you. They'll find you, you know, like, and
Yeah.
so I had people to kind of like, you know, cheer me on in that sense. And then I think part of it was just like, curiosity, you know, of like, well, what happens if I do this? Like, what
Yeah.
is going to happen? You know, and also realizing that like, as much as like, yes, we have to be fiscally responsible, and there, you know, you are responsible for things. Like, really, at the end of the day, though, if it really blew up, you could just walk away. You know, like if you're, you know, if you really needed to, you can just shut your business and leave, right? And especially in our field, like if one thing the pandemic proved, like our profession is kind of, you know, like pandemic proof or recession proof, right? Like people will always need us in some capacity. And especially if you provide good care, I do really believe that like that is your number one business tool. And so it was kind of just a curiosity of like, and also just like, I kind of wanted to have fun at my job. You know, I was
Yeah.
like, I want to have fun. I want to see what happens. So
So you wanted to almost lose the routine or structure, right? Like the
yeah.
monotony of the job, I should say.
Yeah, and again, if you had asked me that like coming out of mat leave, I would have been like, no, I want that. And then after like, you know, kind of getting going again, it was like, okay, I'm a little sick of this. Let's go explore. Like, and I think again, like talk to anyone who's in our field. We are lifelong learners, right? It's partly why we got into the
Absolutely.
field. And so I feel like at that point I was ready for a challenge. Like I wanted to push myself clinically again. And I wanted to push myself in like ways that I didn't really like even honestly, I didn't really know what I was getting into, if I'm honest. Um thankfully.
A lot of things are like that. It's so true. We
Yeah.
look back, we're like, thank God I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Otherwise, like, I would have never signed up for this. So,
and then you look at it at the end, you're like, well, thank God, because it's such a great and beautiful journey. There's lots of the ups
mhm.
and then there's a lot of downs, but like overall, the trajectory is so amazing, right? So
Yeah, totally.
you decide to step away and you're like, okay, I'm going
Mhm.
to do this. And you were really liking that gym setting because your experience as an athletic therapist, right?
Strength coach, but yeah.
Sorry, the
Yeah.
strength. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So,
That's good.
and you said you could walk away, no problem.
Yeah.
Like, financially, it was okay. What was the
Mhm.
space like? And like, tell us a little bit about, what that space was initially that you were going into. Cause I think that's a factor in this decision
Yeah.
too.
Oh, absolutely. And like, again, as a, like someone who's like low risk, like low
Yeah.
commitment, if I'm honest, you know, at least at that time.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. 100%. But again, those are my values, right? I'm like, yeah, that is a hill I will die on every time. But like for the rest of it, maybe not. Yeah, so it was my practice is based out of it's called Evolve Strength. So shout out to Evolve. They have a few locations. They actually just opened one up in Vancouver. So if you're in
Believe
Vancouver, you
it.
should go check them out downtown. I want to go visit it. It looks beautiful. So like my business definitely piggybacks off of their business. So they are a gym. So there's 30,000 square feet. It's a beautiful facility. It's like high end equipment. It's also a powerlifting gym. So, you know, weightlifting, CrossFit, like powerlifting. It's not really your typical, like, for lack of a better word, like Globo gym. There's no mirrors, you know, it's a very different clientele. So it's a different mindset. And how their business functions is that's part of their business. And then the other part of it is they basically like sublease to smaller clinicians like myself. So technically it's a license. It's like a mall, right? You
Yeah.
walk in and there's 30 practitioner rooms. And so you can get your nails done. There's laser therapy, there's chiro, there's massage, like there's like everything. There's even a hearing place in there. And, respiratory therapist, like it's everything. And so it was for me as a solopreneur, especially, it was a very feasible way to get started. So I just started with renting a room. I am now like the longest running tenant that they've had in this facility. I opened when they opened. So it's been really fun to like grow with them as well. The Evolve that I'm in is, it's women owned. So that's been really fun too, which especially in like the gym world is very rare. And so it's just been a really supportive environment. And then again, I'm really comfortable in a gym setting. I really like it. We have unlimited access to all the equipment. So my overhead was really low. I bought 3-pound weights and some TheraBands to get started. And that was it. And then like as we've grown,
$100, right? Like your startup was like $100 plus your rent, which is how much approximately?
I won't disclose the full amount, just because I do have a pretty good deal. Again, I was the first tenant in there, but it was very affordable. And so it was really like, and she was very kind. I was the first one or second one to sign on, I think. And so I signed a 1-year lease. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this for a year and see what happens. And so, it was the right situation for me. And I felt really comfortable in that setting. And I understood how Evolve worked because the original Evolve was actually in Edmonton, and it opened when I was a student in physio school. So I went there as like a member. And so I felt it was very full circle. Yeah. It was really ironic because we used to drive past this where it is now. We used to drive past it because we live in the area. And I would say to my husband, like, I just wish there was an Evolve there. I just wish there was an Evolve there. And then like it happened and it was crazy. And so again, it was like, even though the timing felt terrible, the opportunity was like, I'm like, I have literally wanted this for years. And so we jumped in.
Amazing. So it was like, you're good. You're like, okay, I'm low risk. I have a little one, maybe I want to have more kids, right? We know that you have a little one too.
Yeah.
And, 2 under the age of 5, right? So tiny kids. Yeah. He's in school, almost done. So there's a lot going on at home, and you do have a support system, but it's like one room. You have a bunch of practitioners that maybe you're going to do some referrals with. You work in a gym setting, which is that a big referral system for you? Like when you first started, for example, the first month, how many patients do you think you were seeing in that room?
Yeah. So I actually distinctly remember this because again, this is how I talked myself into it. I was like, in order to like cover my costs and not drown, I had to see 13 patients a month. And so I was like, okay, I need 13 appointments. That was my goal. Get 13 appointments. By my second or third week, I was seeing 13 a week. And so I was like, oh, this might work. Okay, great.
It was you, right, Lindsay? Like you were
it was, and I was still working at the hospital. So I was doing my 3 days at the hospital, and I was working like, it was kind of probably the equivalent to like 2.5 days there to get it started. And so, so I mean, in theory, I was working 6 days a week. At the same time, my husband was off work at that time. And so it was like, there was like, again, all these added stresses. And so I think it was just kind of like, Kate, blinders on, like, just go, like, just keep walking forward. It's not going to be perfect. You don't know what you're doing, but just keep walking forward. And so I originally like, and again, I credit this to like, I had really like talked to a lot of people before I had launched. And I actually had talked to another physio. He owns several clinics in Edmonton, but they were functioning out of Evolve. And and he was so kind. I just, through a friend, got his email, and I was like, hey, can I ask you some questions about Evolve and how you made your business work? And so he was so kind. He like jumped on a call with me, and he just was like, and I just asked him questions, and he kind of was like, okay, here's what you need to know. Like, think about this. Don't be surprised by this. Like, he was really, really helpful in terms of like, and I honestly accredit a lot of my success to that conversation with him, because as time has gone on and I've watched other practitioners come and go, I'm like, oh man, like I would have done that. I would have assumed that if it wasn't.
Like, I want to know, like, I think people want to, so like, because now it's sort of like, we want the work-life balance. We have kids. We're busy. We're being the CEO at home, which is a whole other task in itself. People say reproductive, it's like the reproductive labor is $250K, they say. So if you're full-time mom at home, that's what you should be paid. Crazy, right? And now you're doing technically 2 full-time jobs, right? And so talk to me about that. Like, what was that conversation like? What was like 2 tidbits that you got out of it that were like, thank God he told me that, because that's why that person didn't sustain for more than 6 months in this clinic or in this setting.
Yeah. I think there was like, because what I remember the conversation, there was 2 big things that I took away from it. One, he said, like, because of the system that we work in, and I think this is just good business advice in general. He's like, work on your relationship with Evolve. He's like, the reality is like, their successes will be your successes, and their shortcomings will be your shortcomings. And so making sure that like, and he also said like, how are you adding value to their business,
I love
and
that.
so having that mindset of like, okay, what am I going to bring to the table, because there's going to be things down the roads that I need from them, right? And so working on that relationship, and that actually was easy for us. Again, I think there was an alignment of values there, and so that's just been fun to see it grow, and to see them succeed too, right? And then the other thing that he had said was that like, don't assume that you can run your entire business from the population that's going to come in through the gym memberships.
Mm.
And that's the assumption, right? Like, well, I'll just treat the gym people, right? And he said, and he had said that like less than 30% of their clients came from inside the building. He's like, you need to be looking outside of the building. And so that has been like, well, it's not a secret anymore, but that has been like our secret weapon of recognizing that, like, especially with the style of gym that it is, a lot of those people, like, they're high level powerlifters, they're high level weightlifters. Like, we have people in the gym that are literally going to worlds for their sport, right? And a lot of them have a care team, right? And so if you're going to assume that you're just going to like march in there and like, I will, and so again, now with that said, like our percentage of our caseload has grown, that we are collecting people from the gym, but making sure that, like, again, don't assume that you will, and then looking broader and looking at like your bigger community of how are we going to service. And the cool things to then see is like people will come in to see us for physio, and maybe they're recovering from ACL surgery, or maybe they've got that chronic low back and they're like, okay, I need to make some changes. And then we can walk them to the front desk and be like, okay, sign up for a membership, right? We don't reap any financial reward from it, but we're bringing people in that like have like-minded sort of goals. And so again, we're showing our landlords like, hey, we're also adding value. And so it's been a really fun like collaboration in that way too. And then also our patients reap the rewards too, because now they have access to like a world-class training facility, and they can come in and do their rehab. And maybe we're with another client, but we see them out on the gym floor, and you can like be like, hey, great job, So again, it's kind of like we've built this little mini community within a larger community, and that's been really fun.
Yeah, it's a win-win-win. And I think people don't see that. Like, it's all often like, how can I just grab from that population, right? But you're not in then returning, because there is that benefit, like a mutual benefit. What are maybe like one or two avenues, because you talk about outside of the facility? That's a big one. Like, you marketed really well outside of that facility. So you were working 2.5 days, you were seeing 13 patients by a week by month 2, one room, working probably full days and that half. What were the two things that you're like, thank God I did those things? Because that is what, took me to that next level.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good question. I think like very early on, and again, I had help with this. I think I established my brand well.
Okay.
And again, I think that was the culmination of like, I knew what my values were. And like, especially as a solopreneur, like your values are you, right? Or your values are the business value, because it's just you, right? So really like your business is just an expression of yourself.
So true.
And so I think I knew what my core values were, and I knew what I wanted my brand to speak. And again, I had help with this. I have a dear friend who's like, she's an athletic therapist turned copywriter who now is like, works for this very swanky digital marketing, blah, blah, blah. So like, I can't take credit for this, but I think what it is just like learning to like draw on the people that are in your corner and be like, and ask for help. Right. And I'm always surprised, like people love helping people. So not being afraid to ask for help. And so I think she really helped me sort of solidify what I wanted my brand to be. And I did make an investment in that. Like I did make an investment to have the website done professionally. Like I tried to figure it out myself, and it was just overwhelming. So I think, again, I really sort of solidified that early on. And I feel like that sort of helped set the tone and the direction that I wanted this thing to go.
So like almost, I always say this because I heard this, I think, from Rick one time, and it stuck with me, is the stuff you're not good at or you don't like doing because you're procrastinating. That's usually like, that's the stuff that you don't like doing, you're not good at. Hire, like just outsource, right? So
yeah.
You did that with your branding. That really worked well, because you were like focusing on Evolve, but also outside, which is fantastic. You had a lot of community networking happening naturally, your personality and charisma, right? And then you were also sort of outsourcing the stuff that you're like, oh, I'm not really good at this, and I want to make money and tree, because this is a new thing. I need to like start bringing in the money, the revenue. And enough that it would give you sway to open more days. Is that correct? Like you wanted that? You wanted more days eventually?
Yeah, my goal was that, and it was, this was not easy. Like, I think I remember having many conversations with my husband of him being like, Lindsay, you got to give something up. You got, like, you can't do everything. You're burning out. You just started, but and that, like, and part of it's that fear, right? Of like, okay, is this really going to work? And so my goal was to eventually transition to like just being there, because the
Okay.
working the 6 days a week with a 1.5-year-old was a lot. And at the same time, my husband then became a first responder. So that's when we
Wow.
switched to this like shift schedule stuff, which anyone who functions in that knows how hard it is, especially from a parenting perspective,
Yeah.
right? And so it was like, okay, the things, and again, this was advice that was given to me of like what makes you money, like what are you good at, right? And so I'm like, I'm good at treating, I'm good at making patient connections, I'm good at cultivating that relationship. So it was like the
Yeah.
things that I just can't figure out and I don't even want to figure out, I hired and outsourced it, and it allowed me to like preserve my energy, especially in that first year when it was just, I'll be honest, like it was a grind, it was such a grind.
Such a
um
good. Yeah.
yeah. And so,
Absolutely.
and then also like, it allows you to again move on to the next thing, right? Because if there's one thing as being a solopreneur, like the to-do list is never done, right? Like there's
Yeah.
just so many things that you have to work through. And so
Absolutely.
getting the right help at the right time will save you so much. So
Yeah. It's an investment, right? You see the ROI.
totally.
You might not see it right away, obviously.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's that fear like, oh, am I spending too much? Like, do I have the
Hmm.
funds to do it? Right. In your
Yeah.
case, you had that low risk. You were investing in terms of the
Hmm.
leads, which is usually the biggest portion that, people are
Hmm.
scared to bite off. You
Hmm.
started in that, in a smaller capacity, which was
Hmm.
fantastic. And you
Yeah.
knew that eventually you had to turn over to maybe that 5 days, which again
Hmm.
gives you work
Hmm.
life balance.
Hmm.
So, what were like a couple other things that maybe you're currently outsourcing?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, what are some of those right now that you're doing
Yeah.
besides
So
the branding?
yeah, in the fall, and it was, in hindsight, I'm like, I don't even know why I didn't do this like earlier. And again, this was something that you had really like sort of like pushed me to do, and it was the best advice I think I've gotten in a long time about outsourcing our admin. So up
Yeah.
until, I want to say August maybe of just 2024, like I was the phone. So even if I wasn't in the clinic, I was picking it up, which if you have little kids, you can appreciate how absolutely ridiculous that is. Cause I literally would be, I'm not even joking, like I'd be nursing a baby and like Fulcrum Physiotherapy, and it was just like, it was stupid in hindsight, and it was so stressful. So we brought on like a virtual like phone company, and they're much like us. They're a small, like women-led, moms working from home.
Love
And
it.
again, it was just like an alignment of values and again, like for us, cost was a concern. And so it fit our budget, and they were willing to work with us on that. And it's been so helpful. And I think like I didn't even realize how much of a stressor that was. And again, in hindsight, I'm like, I'm ridiculous for not seeing it. But like having that taken care of had like I honestly think that was like one of the turning points of like our growth just went like through the roof, right? Because
Love
instead
it.
of trying to answer a phone while driving down Deerfoot, um, like it meant that was off my plate, and again, like we weren't missing calls. Our patients were taken well care of, and our schedule started to fill. So that's been a huge thing, and we hope to sort of expand our administrative support as well. And then yeah, outsourcing. What else did we outsource? I think that was the biggest one.
That was
And
your
then
big piece.
that
Yeah.
was my big one. And then I think the thing that's coming for us, and like sort of what my next project is I do want to bring on some marketing help. I mean, marketing is like, especially for me, like it's overwhelming. I'm trying to learn it, but like, I also like, I didn't go to school to be a marketer. And so we're trying to find like, again, like somebody that fits with us and sort of our values, to take that on. We've had tremendous growth, especially in the last 6 months. And so we want to like capitalize on that, but also then realizing like, okay, we literally just took on a second room. It's going to open in March. And so we're hoping
Amazing.
to double in size. And I'm just realizing like, okay, well, I can't double my capacity when it comes to marketing. So, making that investment, I think I anticipate that will be a huge help to us as well.
Absolutely. So you got in, you started getting busy, and then did
Mm-hmm.
you have your second mat leave while you were at Evolve?
Yeah, so that was kind of another point where it sort of like forced my hand to grow.
Okay.
So we decided like we wanted to have a second kiddo. So what year? Gotta think about the years now.
So it
So
must have been 2 years
2020,
ago, right?
I was
Like,
gonna say, yeah, I'm trying to like, it's funny how when you're a mom, like the dates are a blur. So yeah, 2023, I was pregnant. And so it was like, okay, I either have to shut it down, right? Cause I really wanted some time off. Yeah. And then it was sort of this like fork in the road. Okay. You either shut it down and like wrap it up, or okay, you have to hire your first contractor and bring on a team member. And so like that decision I struggled with for months. Like, and I'm talking, and honestly, I think again, it was just like the fear, right? Of like, no one cares about your business as much as you do. Just like no one loves your children as much as you do, right? Yeah. Except for maybe their grandparents. But anyways, and so just that like anxiety of like, and then also like the control, right? Like when it's just you can control every little aspect. Like I am that nut bar that's like, I want the towels folded a certain way. And so, like realizing that like, you should let go of that. And that's okay if the towels are folded a little bit different than you want.
Like it's not like extra revenue necessary. Not like maybe some people, I don't know.
Yeah. I still go in and fix them every day, but it's fine. It's so pathetic, but it's true. And so, so I think,
right? Like, that's what I say. It's your baby.
Yeah. It is your baby. And so I think just like, but then also realizing that like, really, again, boiling it down to your core values. Like, what do I care? I want clients to be seen. I want them to be cared for. I want us to justify their goals, and I want to actually help them. Like I always say, like my mission is to be known as the most helpful clinic in the city. Like it doesn't mean that we're the best. It doesn't mean that we're more skilled. It doesn't mean that we pump out more like revenue or whatever. I'm like, I want us to be known as that when you came here, you got the help that you needed. And that might mean not coming here, right? Like, and so if we can just be people's first touch point, like it's even in our name, right? Fulcrum, it's like the point in which the access like rests, right? And it's like, I want it to be like that we are your touch point, that when you come and see us, that we get you on the trajectory that gets you towards your goals. And that can look like anything. And so I think it's like, if you talk to any clinician, like they kind of want that too, And so it was realizing that like, all of that anxiety and fear was really just like, it was sort of my own insecurities of like, is this enough? Am I enough? Can this be enough? Right. For somebody else to come and do too.
You were in that fork in the road. Cause I remember talking to you at that point and you're like, I think that was one of our initial conversations where we said, where you said to me, I'm not doing that great. And you were just in the middle of your leave. I think you were only 6 months in, maybe even less. Yeah. And you were sort of like, I think I want to go back to the hospital. I remember that. It was like, oh, we're not doing this. Like, So what was that fear? Like, what was it? Was it financial? Was it what? Like, what was that that kept lingering in your head that your husband said to you, stop worrying about this. Stop worrying about this.
Yeah. I think
you were doing well, right? Like you were there.
Yeah. Like we were surviving at that point. Like I had been myself. I had made my first hire, and that was like a huge learning curve. Like that was like probably one of the hardest, like just again, like way out of anything I had done before. And again, also like I was very pregnant at the time. Which, that's, you're never thinking quite clearly at that point. And then it was like bringing on this person and trying to figure out like, and there's also like so many of the things that you do automatically, you don't realize like, oh, I probably should have told them that that's how that works. Right. And so there's the training aspect. Right. And so it was a huge learning curve. And I'm so grateful to that person. They were very kind as we sort of stumbled our way through it. And so it was challenging though. Like we did. And when I looked back at my stats this morning, it was like, oh yeah, we did. Like we hit a bump in the road. So when I did go off, the baby came early, I went on mat leave, and it was like, things really sort of died down. And it was kind of this like, oh crap, like I don't know what to do. And so, but you're also kind of in like baby bliss mode because you're so distracted by that. And in hindsight, thank goodness I was, because when I look back, I'm like, wow, we weren't doing that great. It was kind of actually a little bit like not great there for a while. And so we were kind of,
okay. Like how many?
So the month that I went on mat leave. So January, like it was decent. And then February, like again, the first week I went on leave, and I think it was like it was almost a 40% drop in revenue. Yeah. So it was like shocking.
Huge. There was no training necessarily to replicate the style your patients were used to.
Totally. And also just like my own like ignorance of like knowing how, and this the individual that was like that we had first hired, like they were very young in their career. I had no idea how to mentor someone. I didn't even know like what to expect from them. And so like, again, huge learning curve. And
Yeah.
also just like, I didn't realize I was old and out of touch with current society. So I was like, what do you mean you don't think like me? Like, you know, it's just understanding those like cultural differences and that like generational difference. It was just like such a huge learning curve. And in hindsight, thank goodness I was distracted by a baby, because I think I would have been way more stressed out about it.
Wow.
But it was just kind of like, okay, let's just keep going. Like, just keep walking forward, keep treading water, you know? And then, but by the time I came out of that like newborn fog, as I call it, it was the reality of like, I think I said this to you, I'm like, this is an expensive hobby. And it's like, we are at a fork in the road. Like, we're either wrapping this up or we have to pivot. We have to start to like drive some growth here. And so it was, I credit that my first conversation with you, because I was very much at this place of like, I might just walk away from this. And then having someone with your story who you were the first person I talked to that I was like, oh my gosh, she understands what I'm experiencing. Like, she totally gets it. And just having you say like, you can do this, like this is an option. And so that was again like another sort of pivotal and like turning point for us, was like, okay, like this could work. We just have to keep going. So
absolutely. And I know that, you know, a part of it is like the personality, right? And a part of it is like, you had gone through all the other experiences where like we go through associateships, we go through, okay, let's work in a hospital, let's work for so-and-so, let's work for, you know, corporate, and you stumble on certain pivot points or forks in the road, if you want to call it. And it's very easy to go back. It's very easy to fall into those, this seems comfortable tracks, but you were there, right? And so that decision, not an easy one, but you had everything sort of set out in front of you. It just, you needed someone to see it for you, right? To say like, it's okay. And so when you decided that, what was one of the challenges you encountered? You're like, I'm doing this. What was that first challenge that you saw a little bit of a win, where you're like, I see a little bit of the light in the end of the tunnel now?
Yeah, I think like making system changes and then learning to have hard conversations, which are hard. Yeah, I don't like conflict. I mean, I don't know too many people that do. And I think for myself, like I always, like, especially through my mat leave and bringing on like our first team member, it was like this constantly this battle inside of me of like, okay, am I just trying to control things that I need to like let go of? Or is this like, are we compromising on our core values? And sometimes you don't really know the difference, especially as a solopreneur, you don't really know the difference until you're on the other side of it. And so like learning that like, okay, this is something I need to like relax, like the towels, we can let the towels go, you know? But like, okay, no, like patient care must come first. And I have to go in and have a hard conversation with this person about this and learning how to do that. Right. And that was really challenging. And that's something that I'm not good at. And I would still say I'm probably never going to be great at, but it's just learning that like the more you do it, it's like any skill, the more you do it, the more you will learn how to have those conversations. And then, creating system changes, like, even for yourself, like sort of like, you know, retraining your habits, right. Of how you're going to approach things or look at things. It was even hard for me. And I think that's where it's been helpful to like have those systems set up, and then you're like, okay, I just like having someone show you how to like put them into your business, so that when you do go meet with your team and be like, well, this is how we do it, you know, it's like you can say that with confidence, and then also just the assuredness of like you might know what you're doing a little bit by that point.
So what was one big system? Like, so for me, I'll tell you, because when I went back after my little Bria, my little one, she's almost 4 now, but I went back. So sorry, with my older one, Shiloh, went back after 3 months. It was horrible experience. And I had to game change. It was like everything had to be changed, right? Because I had no idea what I was doing. And I had lost a complete idea of like what my vision was. And so, you know, put the work in. When Bria came along, I took an 8-month mat leave. But I had systems in place, so I knew exactly what was happening. Like I had a clinic director, I had a clinic manager, I had meetings on. So what were your systems that allowed you to keep a pulse on the clinic while you were at home on mat leave? Because from my understanding, you are just working Saturdays still, right?
I just added like a short shift on Tuesdays because I'm still not ready to miss bedtime yet. But so
it's sort of like a new thing. But like you're working, let's say 1 day a week seeing patients.
Yeah, basically.
What was that system that you're like, I can still grow and I can still keep a pulse on my practitioners?
Yeah. So one of the things, actually, it sort of was like accidental, if you will, with the addition of our offsite admin. They set us up on a Slack channel, and it's basically like a live chat right between us and them
Okay.
throughout the day. And so we've also been able I have my computer open on my kitchen table like all day. And so, as things are coming up, I'm just kind of checking in, right? Like you can still make dinner and do that, or change a diaper and do that. So just kind of keep it like, but that's been really helpful. And then also just like, I think creating the type of relationships with my clinicians. It's been interesting to see like the team grow, because we're all moms, like we're all in the same life stage. We like, between the four of us now, there's 7 kids between the four of
Wow.
us, and they're all under the age of 6. And so
That's so
like,
cute.
like my contractors text me at 9 o'clock at night after bedtime, and I get it. Like that's the only time you have in the day. And so
Absolutely.
I think, one, cultivating relationships, and then I do try to, like, regardless of what's gone on, I check in with them on a weekly basis, and just being intentional to be like, do you need anything? Because I'm not there, right? And so
Text messages, emails, or phone calls?
mostly text. Some of them prefer phone calls. So I think it's just like figuring out what they like, and and again, like timing wise, I'm pretty flexible, because like I get it. Our schedules as moms is like, you work when the kids are sleeping. And so, and then and again, this is something that's in progress, but realizing that like I've always been trying to do, like, I want to do these events where we all get together and we all have lunch together, and realizing that like at the stage of life that they're in, they really don't want that. Like that is so stressful to them when I'm like, come back to work for an extra hour, and they're like, I don't have childcare, or so-and-so has dance, or like, and so being intentional about when we do pull everybody in, trying to really add value, and then also being like, I will not ask of this of you a lot,
So culture,
yeah,
like, and that's so
yeah,
interesting, because we really talk about culture and like
mm-hmm.
cultivating that. But what I love
Mm-hmm.
hearing from you is your culture is the fact that I'm happy to be here. You can touch base
Mm-hmm.
with me week to week through text,
Mm-hmm.
through a call, and they
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that. But they're okay with you being like, I don't want to see you after work necessarily, because I don't have time. It's more stressful.
100%.
And it's
Yeah.
such a refreshing way to think in some cases, because
Mm-hmm.
if you're hiring someone who, is a
Mm-hmm.
mom, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
has a couple of kids, or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case is, don't be offended that they maybe you don't want to come
Mm-hmm.
out. Maybe to them
Yeah.
that's less stressful, and creating
Mm-hmm.
that culture around almost each person in a way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
their love language or their work language, I say, right? It's
Yeah.
simple. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so I think it's just like been like, part of that's been like through learning, and then also just thinking like, well, what would I want? Right. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be, we tried to do a Christmas party, and I literally just sent out a survey, and I gave them like 4 options. And one of them was like, don't ask anything extra of me right now. It was literally the most common answer.
I love that you did
Yeah.
that. I love them.
So it was like, I'm like, okay, I will get you Christmas gifts, but we're not doing a Christmas party this year because you're the moms, and Christmas is hectic for moms, right? So yeah, I think it's just like, it's like getting to know my team, and like how, and I also try to think of it. I'm in a really interesting situation, because I'm actually on my team right now. I am the youngest in age, and also the youngest in experience.
Wow.
And so it's an interesting dynamic in that sense. And so my approach has always been like, they don't need, and I think I'm fortunate. They don't need me to case manage. They don't need me to like teach them anything new about their job. My job is to like give them the environment and the tools for them to go do their thing. And so, that's my preferred style of leadership, of like, how can I make this easier for you? Right.
And that's really change, right? Because your
Mm-hmm,
leadership and all that. And I
mm-hmm,
was going to ask you that. It's like,
mm-hmm,
have you noticed that that's changed pre-kids? Because you were in
mm-hmm,
practice before, and
mm-hmm,
then now having your own practice and having 2 young ones. How
mm-hmm.
has your leadership style changed? And how has your
Oh
personality
man. Yeah.
towards your career
Yeah.
changed? Like your ambition?
Yeah. That's such a huge question. Yeah. I think, again, my leadership style has changed dramatically. I think it's also shifted as the team has shifted. Like, again, originally it had to be very hands-on. It had to be very direct. There was a lot of coaching. There was a lot of sort of like managing. Sometimes it felt like parenting that had to happen, and then as our team has grown and stuff like that. And I wish I understood to better understand it, but as our ethos has changed too. And like, we have this collection of moms that are all, we're all type A, we all like love our jobs and love our kids, and work is a break for us, but then we go home and we're full-time moms. So I think it's just like, as that has sort of happened organically, just trying to find ways of like, again, I don't need to micromanage these people. I need to like give them the tools for them to thrive. And so like whether we're doing like our quick check-ins in the week or we're having a more formal meeting, I always finish with like, how else can I make this easier for you? You know, what else do you need? And a lot of times I think, yeah, which like as anyone who's a mom who like, if someone said that to you, you might start crying and be like, that's so kind, you know? And so it's just like recognizing that like, if I can do that, and sometimes it's like the silliest things. It's like, can we get 1 pound weights? Yeah, let's get 1 pound weights, you know? Like,
and the fact that we're able to maybe like openly say that to you, because sometimes the environment doesn't allow for that. We've all worked in places where you're a little bit nervous to kind of present, you know, or like say something, and then you might get the no on something really simple. So you hired your 4th physio.
Yep.
And a year ago you were thinking, was it a year ago? You were thinking of like shutting it down. So crazy full circle here.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, with the 4th hire and, you know, with it being like sort of like a crew of moms and like not intentionally, but just how it's worked out, right?
Yeah.
Do you find that sort of like now resonated with the team where like they are now recruiting people for you because you've been so accommodating, it seems, and so in tune with what they need? Like, are they almost doing that for you in some ways, the recruiting?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because we're all in similar life stages, but we're all 4 completely different personalities, and even like subspecialties, I would say as well. I don't necessarily think they're like, I wouldn't say it's so much recruitment. I think it's just like, it's really solidified our culture, and it's really sort of organically created this like team of like collaboration. Like, so like not to like, you know, it's February, every 4 minutes, one of your kids is getting sick, you know? And so like, as you know, there's like, we have no hesitation of like, hey, so-and-so's kid is like throwing up. Okay, I'm not coming in tomorrow. Okay, who can take my patients? You know what I mean? And so, and then just being like, yeah, okay, throw them into so-and-so's schedule. Okay, great. And so that, I think again, it's sort of furthered our culture of like understanding that like, where it's kind of all hands on deck, and that it's, you know, it's like we're balancing a lot between work and home. So,
and it's almost like you're, you know, where there's that old school type of leadership where like you're here and then everybody else is sort of like doing their parts. It seems like you guys are really at the same level. So it's almost intentional that you've done it that way, where like, I see your life parallel in mine. Let's work together on the same level rather than me being up here. So what are some, like, you know, someone who's about to hire, for example, a mom, often they will say like, oh, this person can only work at 7 a.m. to 1, right? Because they have to pick up their kids and all these sort of things, right? And so what are 1 or 2 boundaries that you set for yourself, your lifestyle, you know, just so that you can be present at home? As an entrepreneur, you can do, like, I mean, you can work all night.
Oh yeah. Sometimes you do like, and I'll be honest, like I forget who said it, but I saw it like somewhere, I heard it somewhere, and they're like, balance is seasonal. And I think that's so true of like that, you know, we all want work-life balance, and it's just like rehab is not linear, right? It's like there are seasons where you're like, okay, for the next week I am working till midnight at night and getting up to nurse in the middle of the night and getting up at 6, right? But it's like recognizing that like, okay, that's not going to be every week, right? And so I think also like on the receiving end, as someone who's maybe like making that hire, is recognizing that like it's also, that is also seasonal. There'll be seasons where your contractor or your employee like is more available than others. And so I think having those conversations about like, and we talked about it as a team, like, okay, it's February, flu season is here. Like, let's just make sure that we're like, not like, don't let patients slip through the cracks. Be willing that people are gonna like show up in your schedule unexpected. And so we have a system in place of like, if it's a super complex case, they're expected to like make contact with each other and have a quick little text conversation or quick little phone conversation about like, hey, this is the person, this is what we're looking for. We also so stress that like in your plan, make sure that your plan is really clearly sort of like, if you know that you were going to do this next appointment or whatever, make sure that's stipulated so that if someone's picking up your chart unexpectedly, that's laid out. So yeah, I think
it's like major collaboration happening. And I love how you this. It's February, you know, and so does that give you that boundary at home where like you're not getting constant text messages?
I think it helps a lot. I think the clinicians also like it because it gives them some autonomy, like no one's sort of micromanaging them. And it's been interesting to see, like, again, like February has been a really like inconsistent month just between sickness and the weather here has been horrendous. And so, it's allowed us to sort of just like keep moving forward as things have done it. And again, like my contractors are phenomenal. Their caseload like matters to them. And so they want to take care of their patients. And so they want to make sure that people aren't just getting like dropped and stuff like that. So a lot of our systems have been organic in that, like, we sort of set the precedent of like, make sure communication is happening, make sure patients aren't just like dropped and forgotten about. And then through things that work for them, again, like whether it is texting at 10 o'clock at night, because that's the only time you had that day, or like leaving a note in the case file, because you work, you did it from home or whatever. So far it's been working okay, and I'm sure like anything. And I always say this whenever I'm rolling something out, I'm like, this is version 1. We're going to reevaluate in a month or 2 months, and then we're going to fix it, And so I think like also them, and again, I think as a parent, you get that, right? Like, as a parent, your kids are constantly changing and you're constantly having to adapt. And so if you take that approach with your business and even with your team of like, we're going to try all this for now, and in a month, we're going to see if it's working, and then we might have to change it. And so if we all remember in a month from now that this was a trial, when you go to make those changes, it's not as painful because you've had that conversation up front.
And it's like people are included in that conversation, which is
totally great. Yeah. And especially as a mom, like the last thing you want, I think, from your job is to be told like, you will do this. Cause a lot of times you're thinking, will I? So I think just like, again, trying to recognize that, like, if you give them some autonomy and some freedom and some support, like, it's great. It really works well.
It's the simple things that people want, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Even like when we talk about this, me and you, is like, even before the compensation, they want actually the rest of it, which we fail to recognize. Like and it's not just moms, it's like people in general, right? They want, a certain level of compensation, but it doesn't have to be absurd if you are allowed, if you're able to give them the autonomy, right? And that's the beauty of our professions. You can have autonomy. And totally. I think the really neat thing, Lindsey, that you've done is like, your values for all of your practitioners are patient care first. So any of conversations, any sick days, anything is like, it doesn't matter because your underlying value is all the same. So you're really speaking the same language, right?
Totally.
So let me ask you, just to wrap up, because you're killing it. I want to ask you like a few really good tips for other people that are in that position where they're like in the fork, the fork in the road. They're like, I could just go back to that comfort zone, or maybe I just want to stick around. Maybe I do want to take that step, but I don't really know what to do. And I feel lost, right? And I feel nervous because of money and like, I have kids at home and maybe like my husband's back at school, or I don't have a support system. So what keeps you energized and focused?
Oh my gosh. It sounds cliche, but I honestly think my kids help with that, because I think for me, I can see the benefit of like, by having this project, if you want to think of it that way, also gives me the freedom to be the mom that I want to be. Yeah. So and again, I think that comes down to like knowing your values, and it's like, especially as a solopreneur, like understanding yourself and like what you want at the end of the day, I think will help you make those big decisions. So if like, this is what I'm striving for, or this is what I want my outcome to be, or this is what I want my day to look like, and working backwards helps, right? Like I don't mind doing emails and answering texts like after bedtime, because I got to be at home with my kids that day, and I got to do preschool drop off, and I, whatever it is, and so I think understanding what you want, and then again, recognizing that like, there's there's seasons to that, right? Like not every day is going to look like that, but if you're having more of those days than not of those days, it's in my mind, it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that, because I think it gives you sort of perspective, like, that daunting feeling like this is going to go on forever. It's not, right? We know that, but sometimes we need to be reminded.
Yeah. And then just like, not every night you're going to be up with your kids, but not every day is going to be like, pulling your hair out with your business either. So there's seasons.
If you had to go back in time, what's one thing you would tell yourself?
Oh man.
What would you do differently to build your practice?
Oh man. I mean, that's a long list, because there's been lots of mistakes along the way. I think and again, this is more, I think like a personality flaw or trait or whatever you want to call it, is that I'm getting better at it, but I'm an overthinker. So there'll be a problem in front of me, and I'll think and I'll think and I'll think and I'll research and I'll process and I'll, and it'll go for forever. And then it's like, okay, you should have hired that person a month ago, but you waited and now they're not available, So I think part of execution, yeah, like learning to make decisions faster.
Okay.
Which, and I'll be honest, that was something we had talked about as well, about like, sometimes it's a sprint, right? You have to get through your process, make that decision quicker. And you're not always going to get it right. Like I can give you an example that happened in December where I was like, yeah, that was a sprint in the wrong direction. So, but it's like, but again, no one died, you'll recover. Right. So, but I think just like understanding what your barriers will be, because that will just come out in your business.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, like going back to that concept of like taking small bites. Like you started with one room, 2.5 days, built those connections. And then, you don't always have to necessarily, like some people start with like, working at the hospital and doing the entrepreneurship journey. It's okay. Yeah. Like you can start at different spots and then growing, but having a little bit of the roadmap is important, right? And having the person that kind of kicks you in the butt, or is you're too.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's great because it allowed you to get to one room, now 2 rooms, you have 4 physios, like, and we know those bumps along the road, like me and you have talked about them. Yeah. And everybody encounters them it's differently, but it's very similar at the same time, right?
Totally. Yeah,
and we know that in our community, because when we talk to people, you're like, oh my God, you're going through the same thing. Like you're from left to, now what are you going to do? Right? Like I went through that a month ago. So I like that you said, like doing it fast is important. It is important, right? And then having the confidence of community, of people around you that are PTs or people doing it the same way that you're doing it and have been across that, that in that journey. Yeah. What last thing to finish off, because I know you have to get to your kiddos too. What advice would you give to other moms that are like, okay, I am ready to jump in. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. One, you can do it. Like, just like, don't believe the doubt in your head. You can definitely do it. Being a mom gives you a tremendous skill set that allows you to be a great entrepreneur. And then also, like, you don't have to do it like everyone else, right? Yeah. Just like you parent, like the way that you parent and your kids are unique and the way you run your house is unique, your business will be that too. And that's okay. And so just, comparison is the thief of all joy, right? And so it's just like, don't compare yourself to the clinic down the street. Don't compare yourself to the person who's been doing it 20 years longer than you have been or whatever, right? It's like, know your values, know what you want and what you're willing to sacrifice for and what you're not, and just keep taking one step at a time.
That's amazing. I love that you left off with that. And so from 6 months ago to now, you said you dropped 40% in your mat leave. What has your growth been?
So 2024 ended up being a good year overall. Again, and September was sort of a turning point for many, many reasons. That's also when we started working with you guys. So we ended up having a 7% growth rate, like on average across the year. So that was really good. And then again, January, we had a great month. We've more than doubled this January what we were doing last January. Wow. And our trend, we've opened up more hours. We've added the second room. So like our revenue potential has also doubled. And so it's, we're trending in the right direction. So it's fun. Yeah.
Awesome. You've done a lot of things right. A lot, and had a family along the way and, just done such amazing things. And I think you've worked yourself out of that self-doubt, which is the most important thing. There's always going to be those things along the way. Oh, yeah. And then you always have me to be like, don't worry, you can do it.
Yeah. You got this. Get going.
Awesome, Lindsey. Thank you so much for being with us today. I know this is going to resonate with a lot of people out there, because a lot of us are in that same position where we just want to, go for our careers and have that, that beautiful family. And I think you're just a great example of that. So thank you so much for being here. Where do people find you if you want to touch base?
Yeah, for sure. So I am on Instagram. Like I said, you're not allowed to look at the old posts. So you can find me, Lindsey, so lindsey.physio. You can also find our practice as Fulcrum Physio. We're located in Calgary, so fulcrumphysio.com. But yeah, that's probably the best ways to get a hold of me. If you're in the Seton area, you can come check us out at Evolve Strength Seton. If you're near an Evolve, you should just go check it out, because I swear they're like it's a physio's dream, physio chiro dream. So I'm gonna charge Evolve for my free marketing now. But anyways,
You're an entrepreneur. My God, it's always been in you. Awesome.
Yeah.
Lindsey. We'll talk soon then.
Okay. Thanks, Manju.
Bye.